Hi there, and welcome back to the October edition of The Place to Be, a brand new show on Oshkosh Media Life TV, which focuses on our community, on not-for-profits, on volunteers, and how they make a difference in our wonderful community. COVID is going on, as everybody knows, and volunteering can be difficult during COVID. Every place sets their own guidelines and rules on what they can do and what they can't do, especially we think about the older volunteers or those with health problems. So Father Cars was affected by that also, but we're making do because we do use a lot of the college students, so we're glad that they're back and can help us out. But we also follow the same guidelines that everyone else does. Masks, distancing, disinfecting, cleaning, because we want everyone to stay safe. A little about Father Cars. Father Cars has been in existence for 47 years and a true blessing in our community. A lot of people don't know everything about Father Cars. They just hear the word Father Car, and sometimes they think of shelter or food. Father Cars also has a free clinic in our community, which is open to the public. We also have a food pantry, so every Friday we do a food drive from 8 till 11. People can drive on through and get their food box. We also have something called Our Daily Bread, which is like a little grocery store inside the food pantry, open certain hours every day where people can come and get fresh vegetables, fresh fruit. Now is the time. Everybody's gardens are overabundant with tomatoes and zucchini and squash, and so you can come and get that also. Maybe you didn't know that we're also a community center. So we invite groups to come in, of course, safely with distancing and that, to come in and host their meetings by us, or teen groups to come in. So there's really a lot going on at Father Car's Place to Be. The reason the show is named The Place to Be is because Oshkosh is my hometown, and I think this is the place to be. It offers you so many things, and the big buzzword collaboration, that is Oshkosh, that is volunteers, and so we're glad that you can join us for this show. A project that we have coming up that maybe you guys can do at home with your children or by yourselves at home is Thanksgiving cards. Last year, Father Cars went to a drive-through format. We couldn't invite people in to serve the meals as we normally did, so we went through a drive-through. We served 900 meals on Thanksgiving. And so with each meal, we like to put a card or a picture or something so each family gets a little treat to go along with their meal. So I'm looking for Thanksgiving cards or tray favors, and if your school group or your family wants to do them, please feel free. They can be as elaborate as you want or as simple as you want, and then we'll include them with all the meals. Like I said, last year was 900 meals, so that meant 900 cards. So those cards can be dropped off at our Mother Teresa Center on the Father Cars campus. If you have any questions, you always can call me on my cell. It's 920-279-9873. Or my email at Father Cars is my name, JOHNNIEMAN, @fathercars.org. Also want to take this time to thank those who make this program possible, which would be our sponsors. We're very, very grateful to have Father Cars sponsor this show, along with the Oshkosh Herald, a great local newspaper where you can get all the news that is going on in our wonderful community. Also, our set design is by a florist in town. Just opened up his brand new shop, but he's been around forever, Brian at U-Bloom. So we're really, really grateful to all those guys who make this show possible. You have any questions for me? Email or call me. If you know someone who might be a good guest on our show, featuring volunteers or events or programs, also give me a call or give me an email. Well, we're going to go to a break right now. When we come back, we'll have our guests for our October edition of The Place to Be.
Oh, it's going to be great.
I think it goes around.
Let's go. We got to get you in practice.
And it's set.
Welcome back. I'm John Neiman from Father Carr's Place to Be, your host for this new show called The Place to Be. I want to introduce our guests. We have two guests with us from the university. Mike Luter, who's the Director of Center for Community Engagement at UWO, and he's going to introduce the special guest you brought along.
Thanks, John. Yep, I'm here with Dr. Gabriel Lacano, an Associate Professor of History at UW Oshkosh.
Okay. Welcome you guys to our second show. We made it through once. So
Excellent.
The ratings were really good.
That's
so
good.
We made it through
Yeah.
once and we're still on TV. So, Mike, tell us about the Center for Civic and Community Engagement and your involvement.
Yeah, it's a brand new place for us, and we're very excited about that. Civic engagement, community engagement, volunteerism, service, all of those things have sort of manifested across the university in different ways throughout the years. And this year we're launching a new center where we can really try to bring all of those items back together a little bit, streamline the process, make it easier for the nonprofit agencies to find their way into the university. We have tons of helpers at UW Oshkosh that want to get out there, so that'll make that a little easier. But also open up the ability for the community and all of the volunteers out there to have an easier pathway to serve as well. As you mentioned in your opening, volunteers are a huge part of our community, and we want to help those people find their way to the nonprofits.
And it's not like this is a brand new thing that just hit the table. We've been talking about this for years.
Years, yeah.
And years. You're not that old, but years and years. And can we talk a little about the background? Because we did try our own volunteer center in this town through the Appleton Volunteer Center, and it just didn't work.
Yeah, I think, like you said, this is your hometown, this is where you have your footprint, and I think that's the same place for the places here. We need somebody here locally to understand the local agency and the local agency need, and then have those connections with our other partners, with our great businesses, places like Oshkosh Corp. and Amcor and 4Imprint, all places that encourage their staff to go out and volunteer. You have to know those people so you can connect them back in, but also know many of the small businesses in the area that also like to go and give back to the community, or the school groups, or the principals, so you can bring a class in. So that local connection is really important, I think, to make this successful.
And especially in our world today, because the volunteer world of volunteer leaders, some volunteer leaders or coordinators or managers are not paid. They're doing it on their own. Some are part-time, some are full-time, but they all don't have the same resources. And we had the group normally known as AVA, which now we've morphed into another group for our time now, where people would share ideas and say, did you know that this group does this? Do you know that this group? I don't have a connection to you. And that's why I'm excited, because I think the group that you're involved with now will bring all those connections together for us.
Exactly, yeah. We relaunched that organization as the Greater Oshkosh Volunteer Leaders Group.
I was trying to remember the name.
GoVol. Yep. So, I think, there's lots of, like you said, paid volunteer coordinators at places, but there's also like the group running the local Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or soccer teams that just need some help to figure out some processes. Well, luckily at the institution, we have faculty and staff who do this full time. They study best practices about how to go about these kind of services, and we can share that resource with our local leaders so they can be successful with the group that they're running.
So is that what Gabe is doing here for?
Gabe's doing lots of things here for us. Like you said, sort of the history of volunteering and service at the university. In 2014, the university revamped its general education program with many goals, and one of those goals was to get students connected to the local community, and we do that through community-based learning. So we embedded the idea of going into the community and learning as part of an academic class in a student's sophomore year. And Gabe teaches one of those classes for us, which is really fantastic.
Yeah, it's called Charity and Memory, and it goes from medieval England, 1066, to the modern USA. I ended in 1966, and students learn history in the traditional way, in the classroom and studying, but also by doing, and that's where our partnership with community members comes in.
So then your students go out into our community.
Yes, yeah.
And volunteer.
Yeah, in my class they get one of our hours a week to go out and work either with the St. Vincent de Paul Society or the Oshkosh Area Community Pantry or the Oshkosh Winnebago Housing Authority.
Oh, okay. So what sort of things do they, and they're a variety of agencies.
Yeah.
I mean, the food pantry versus St. Vincent's versus housing. What do they do there?
Yeah, they do whatever they're asked at the St. Vincent de Paul Society and the pantry, which could be everything from checking people out to stocking to sorting through donations. They do it all and interact with both the clients and the other volunteers. Their interactions with the other volunteers, I gather, are some of their most exciting moments.
Right. So how much time do they have to spend in doing this per week?
I ask them to do 14 hours in the semester,
In a
which
semester,
is
okay.
about an hour per week for us at UWO. They have tight schedules as it is, and so this is what we ask. Some of them go on to do much more, and some of them keep their relationship with the people they've been working with.
And this is just one of the many ways that students are involved in the greater Oshkosh community. We sort of see this as an appetizer experience. Give them a taste of it, so hopefully they'll come back later to do something a bit more hearty and in line with maybe what they're studying, because these are general education courses. We do some tracking of what the community impact is from the university to the local community, and the university provides about 275,000 hours of community impact in our local community. That's phenomenal, so that's something that we really want to build into. And these Quest courses, the courses that Gabe teaches, provide about 25,000 hours of that impact alone. So it's really a phenomenal experience.
And I find too, I have UWO interns, I have UWO volunteers, and I find we always think about Oshkosh, but they don't all know Oshkosh because they're not from Oshkosh.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have them go out into the agency and learn about the agency's history, Oshkosh's history, and why we're doing what we're doing. St. Vincent has been around forever.
Yeah, We this being a history class, of course, we get into the history of St. Vincent de Paul a little bit as we're talking about other kinds of charity and government giving to the poor. So this way they can connect what they do in our community to the broader history of how people have done this over time.
So this is going to continue with the new center, with the center that you have. The relationship is just going to get bigger and better.
Bigger and better. I like to say amplify it, right?
Okay.
Let's find how we can amplify it.
Okay.
So these courses are already happening, which is fantastic, but maybe there's other classes at the university that could also be doing this kind of work. So for example, we're working with some faculty in the computer science area, and we found some nonprofits that needed web assistance and web help, right? Many of them do because they don't have designers in their agency. Well, and she said, well, this class that we're working on right now, that's beyond these students' skill set, but I have these other classes that could maybe do this. So it's like, look at that, a perfect connection. It gives the students in the class a really practical place to apply the skills that they're learning in the classroom in a way that they can then report on a resume and talk about in an interview to get them that job or that internship down the road.
Right. And what I like most about this too is because you have the university website, people at the university, but you never know who to call about what. My connection, I'll give a shout out to her because she's been good, is Lynn Clayman. I always call Lynn Clayman and I say, I need someone in criminal justice. And she pointed me to the person, or I need social work, or I need nursing. And she gets you right to the person, and then you have that connection. So at Father Carr's right now, we have criminal justice students, human service students, nurses, and social work students. And it all happened because you made a phone call, but I knew who to ask.
Exactly.
So your center now is going to make that information available to all but not-for-profits who maybe have been around as long as us or who don't have those connections.
Correct, yeah. And we're also partnering with the Oshkosh Area United Way, a great partner in this, who have the website volunteeroshkosh.org.
Yep.
And that's a place where any nonprofit agencies are posting needs that they have, and we're going to help agencies get things posted there, their needs posted there, and help students and community members find their way to that website as well. So
are you just going to use that one website then?
Let's make it simple. Yeah,
Okay,
let's use what already exists.
That's good. That's good. That's great.
As a historian, I've got to point out that this is a continuation of the old tradition of the Wisconsin idea that the boundaries of the university are the boundaries of the state. And I think what you're doing is a great way of making it easier for the university to interact with the broader community.
And I know we were excited about this years ago. When you said Quest started when?
2014.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I do remember that conversation. And it's like we always kept thinking, how can we partner with the university? But there are always these barriers always in the way, like, where do you park? Where is it going to be?
Exactly.
Parking has always been.
Oh yeah.
Parking's always going to be an issue. But I do like this because it's bringing it local. Because we've talked about this before in our meetings too. You never know where the dividing line stops. Some people say Fox River Valley, Fox Valley. Then there's Fond du Lac. We want to include all this. So even with the naming of the group, it's Greater Oshkosh to show that it's not just Oshkosh. We're reaching out because we do get students and we do get volunteers from all the surrounding areas.
And that's a great thing for the university as well right now, because we have campuses in Fond du Lac and Fox Cities as well, and we see the university footprint, if you will, being that broad. So we're willing to serve that broad as well.
Okay. I know that our audience has been looking at these three nice-looking guys for quite a while, but I know we have pictures.
Sure.
So if we want to put the pictures on the screen, and then you guys can talk about what we're seeing in the pictures from UWO.
Yeah, these are some students at the Christine Ann Center doing, I think they're doing a cleaning day there at that time. Christine Ann has been a great partner of ours. So many agencies locally have been partners of ours throughout the years. They're one of the many good partners we have. Father Carr is obviously the food pantry, St. Vincent de Paul, as Gabe mentioned as well, doing some book cleaning. We work with the school district. We have students in many schools across the Oshkosh area school district. So our students are really involved all over the place. This is either a day of service or something at the Christine Ann Center, but we do some one-time days of service like Hands on Oshkosh, where we get a bunch of students out to make a big impact really quick on one day, which is a great sort of gateway program for students to find their place and have that first volunteer experience. So it's a good start for them to be involved. Humans of Oshkosh, if you're on Facebook, or you can find it just on the World Wide Web as well, is a great storytelling project that tells the stories of humans here in our Oshkosh community. This was a project specifically focused on teachers, but this class project has done things focused on veterans and people living in poverty and below the poverty line.
Is it still ongoing then?
It's still ongoing. Yep, their focus right now is on humans of UW Oshkosh, since we're in our 150th year celebration.
Okay.
This is a class of students. It was a political science course, Essentials of Civic Engagement. It's one of their class pictures that we took for a project they were doing. These are two students who interviewed farmers as part of an oral histories project. So we have had students, I think from 2014 on, interviewing farmers throughout southeast Wisconsin and greater Wisconsin to collect their stories and collect their oral histories.
And that is really cool. It's almost like the Veteran Project, because the stories, they're going to be going away because the farms are going away. And to have that history, that is really, really neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really fantastic project. This is another oral histories project that some students were engaged in. This was an art oral histories project, so they were using individual stories. This is someone at the Senior Center. They're using their stories to create maps of space and sort of how they recount the space that they're in. So these students learned a ton about Oshkosh through these individuals' eyes and sort of their memories, which was really fantastic.
And at the same time, they're practicing graphic design. I think that that's what's going on in this picture too. So they do this oral history, and then they map it out in really interesting graphic ways.
Yeah, correct. This is from one of our study abroad trips. So not only do we have impact here locally and in the state as like the Farmers Project, but we have international presence. We go to Ireland almost every single year. We've been to Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Ecuador, Germany, France through study abroad programs as well. So we have a global impact, if you will.
So has COVID affected any of what you're doing or what you're trying to do?
Yes, certainly my class was affected. My students typically would go in person to the St. Vincent de Paul Society and to the pantry. And I knew that some of my students wouldn't want to do that, wouldn't feel comfortable, especially about a year ago in the fall of 2020. And so Mike, who's a great brainstormer, came up with an idea of partnering with the Oshkosh Winnebago Housing Authority and doing a phone buddy project where a student would be paired with someone who, for reasons of quarantine, might be isolated for a long time, and they would check in about once a week, and that worked out to be really well. I tend to be very nervous at the beginning of these projects. How is this going to go? Is it going to work? These are college sophomores, and every time I've been really pleasantly surprised by how well my students have done, how well the community has responded, and this was no exception.
So how does that work with your history class then? What's the benefit for the history part of it, or do you see the connection with what the students are doing?
That's a great question. I ask students to really think about how, say, medieval English monks did poor relief, or how early American overseers of the poor did poor relief, and then compare it to what they see in their experience here in Oshkosh. And some of them already know a little bit about how to compare these things. Others really need this experience to be able to compare today's help to the help of the past.
So do you see your history class different now than what it was before?
I have learned so much, and I wrote a book that came out this year, and I thank my Quest 3 students in this book because I, alongside them, have learned a great deal about how to think about the history of poverty and charity and poor relief because of what they've done.
So what are some of your insights? Because the agencies, I know Mike serves on boards that help the poor, that help the homeless, that help those in need. What can we learn from history? Are we doing it right?
Oh, John.
I
what a
put you on the
question.
spot for that one.
That's a hard question. For me, what we can at least do is see what people have done in the past and what we like and what we don't like. One thing, one example of early American poor relief is that you were technically guaranteed all the food, housing, and medical care that you needed in your hometown, which, if you think about it, is a huge commitment on the part of your local government. On the flip side, though, other towns could banish you back to your hometown if they thought you might need help. And so the more we get into how they did it, and what their values were, I think the better we can assess ourselves and see what we're living up to in our own ideals and what we think we could do better at.
Mm-hmm. And I know everybody, there's always the key word, collaborate, silos. Everybody's in their own silo. But Oshkosh really is different. I'm finding it out just because I've partnered with the food pantry. Mm-hmm. We could both stand alone. But we've partnered together to get the word out to more people, to do things together. Because when you look at Oshkosh, there are a lot of little churches that have food pantries, but nobody knows about them. So for us to get the word out and work together, maybe we're going to end up serving more people. We're not competitors because we're trying to do the same thing. The same thing with St. Vincent de Paul. They were going to be a guest on the show because they do so much that people don't even know what they do or what they offer. And so that's kind of like why I wanted to do this show, is for people to know that there are resources out there, especially the not-for-profits. They don't have, you were talking about students and web design and all that. They don't have, a lot of the smaller ones don't have that. So to be able to come on this show or any show on Oshkosh Media, this show airs 5 of the 7 days of the week. And then if you're really desperate for likes, like I am at sometimes, you can go on YouTube and put Oshkosh Media in it. So you can see this all the time. And I just think it's so important to do that. And I think it's important to save the history.
Yeah.
That's what I love about Oshkosh too. All these buildings that they're restoring now and they're saving to have that history.
You really do get a sense of the history around here.
Yeah.
So our time is winding down. I knew it would anyway, because this is fascinating. What do you want to tell us about your class? Is your class required then?
It is every student who starts as a first-year student is required to go through 3 Quest courses, and this is the third one.
Okay. What are they? So one is history?
Well, they can pick through a variety of Quest
they get a lot of
courses.
choice.
So
you do. So what are some other choices?
History, art, political science. Like there's a great, if you like food, there's a great course called Politics of Food that studies how government affects what we eat and the choices that we have, including things like the school lunch program and the emergency food assistance program.
Education
business courses. So there's a number of courses that all
biology.
teach with the same sort of practice.
Well, that's really
style.
cool. So it's not like they're forced to take this. They can choose.
No.
Everybody has different interests.
Exactly, yeah.
Very cool.
And like Mike said earlier, they come away having worked with the community, but also with some important job skills from this experience.
So do the students come back to you with good stories and not so good stories?
That's a great question. I'm always worried about not so good stories, but I've heard very few. Stories have been wonderful. They've loved their experience, and as I mentioned earlier, often come back with stories of other volunteers that they've really learned a lot from.
Because I've just learned I've been using UWO, I've been at Father Cars almost 2 years. I just know that when I bring a volunteer in, I talk to them about Father Cars, because not all of them are ready for what they're going to see.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the experience of dealing with the homeless or dealing with people who are addicted. And so it has to be a fit for them. Even at St., you know, you would see that
Yeah.
at St. Vincent, I would think
Yeah,
so too.
everywhere.
Yeah. And so if they really connect with it, that is really, really
Yeah.
a cool concept to have.
And every class does a little bit different style of preparing their students for what they're walking into. We have some students who work in education, so we have to do a bit more preparation on how to work with elementary school kids or middle school kids so that they're prepared for that. So we try to do our very best to prepare the students for what they're about to enter.
Okay. So can you give us your contact information, Mike? And so if someone is interested in knowing more about this new center, that is going to happen and that we're going to involve the community, how can they contact you guys?
Right now, the best is email. We're still getting our center website up because we just launched on September 1st. So email me, Mike Leader, at luederm@uwosh.edu.
Okay. Because again, that could be for any not-for-profit agency. It could be, or like you said, it could be a group who's sponsoring a race or a walk or a golf outing.
Exactly, yeah.
It would be a chance to get them together with good help. Because really, you guys, the university is always involved. Like you said, Hands on Oshkosh. I just got contacted from the volunteerism person of what projects can we do in the dorm for people. I just find it amazing that we can give the kids a good experience. And it also helps our agency too. Our agency doesn't stay just in that silo, but it gets out in the community and more people know about it then.
Exactly.
Anything you want to finish with? We have 2 minutes.
It's been a wonderful community. Thanks for welcoming our students.
Oh, perfect. Well, we're so glad that you could be here. And we're going to learn more about the center and Mike's role in the center also. We're really glad that you guys could be here because I think it's important that people know, they know UWO. Everybody knows it, but they don't really know everything that you guys do and what you're trying to do in our community.
Yeah, our impact is way beyond, I think, what people realize sometimes. And we need to do a little bit better job of sharing that story outward. So we're going to try to do better at that and also draw people in. There's really great programs happening, educational things happening that people can involve in, even if they're not a member of the Oshkosh, the UWO community. They don't have to be a student or a faculty member. There's lots of ways for people to enter us.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Mike and Gabe. Thank you guys, too, for watching this October edition of The Place to Be. We're glad that you could join us. Remember to watch us on Life TV or YouTube. Thank you also to our sponsors and the great crew here at Oshkosh Media. We'll see you again next month.